What's going on, Magic fans? Welcome back to another video. My name is Brett James, and I'm joined by a very special guest, John Tortorelli from the Pick a Side podcast. Magic fans, the NBA in-season tournament starts tomorrow. The Magic are currently sitting with a 5-4 record, and we got a lot to talk about today, man. A lot of changes going on with the Orlando Magic. New arena name coming soon. Magic's play-in tournament starts tomorrow, and this is just an exciting time to be a Magic fan. John, happy Monday afternoon, man. Welcome on.
Thank you for having me, and happy Monday. In-season tournament tomorrow. I'm excited to chop up some balls with you.
Definitely, man. Just to kind of introduce yourself to the people, man, because I know everyone kind of knows who I am, familiar face, been covering the team this season. Kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, man. I know you're obviously in Jersey. I'm here in Orlando. Talk to me a little bit about your Magic fandom, kind of how you became a little bit of a fan of the team, and really just talk to me about everything that you do in general.
For sure. So I cover the NBA at scale, and I've always been more of a player's guy than a team person. But I like to invest stock in teams that I believe the future. I believe in their future. And over the years in 2019, 2020, I found it super endearing to watch Nikola Vucevic get his first All-Star appearance, Steve Clifford. And as someone who played similarly myself growing up, I loved Terrence Ross playing when he was hot. And so in those years, I rooted for the Magic. But as it started to transition to the rebuild, I believed in the majority of the moves they were making. I liked the players a lot. And I believe in this team's philosophy a lot. I like the way they're building in a different way than everybody else in the Eastern Conference. So I've got a lot of stock invested into them. In fact, I've probably got the most stock invested into them. So I've become a fan of the team because I love the players.
Definitely. And I remember when Vooch got traded a couple of seasons ago, I remember you had hit me up. And it was just the funniest thing because I remember I was just so livid that we had given up on Vooch. And look, in the grand scheme of things, we got Jett Howard, Franz Wagner, and Wendell Carter. Wendell out of it too. So, man, I'm just so grateful for the Magic to be where they're at right now. And you've even told me off air before too that you're a big Steve Clifford guy, right? And I think a lot of us Magic fans are grateful for him, but we're very grateful to have Jamal Mosley in here too.
Yeah, it's a new day.
Definitely a new day. Like I said, we're sitting at 5-4. We've had a really rough schedule to kind of start off the year. A lot of travel. The Magic are about to go on a 4-game road trip now, start the NBA in-season tournament tomorrow. But kind of just moving off of what the Magic have done so far this season, man, what's been one thing for you personally, John, that's really stood out with this team so far through the first 9 games? Anything?
It's easy. Top 3 defense. You look at a group that last year was one of the best starting lineups in the NBA when Wendell and Markelle were healthy with the core of Jalen Suggs, Paolo, and Franz. And the level of size this team plays with, because they're all football players. You look at Paolo, you look at Jalen, and you look at Anthony Black, who's coming in now. He's starting. He came off the bench early. The way this team plays is aggressive. They're assertive, but they have a level of urgency, right? They like to play in transition. They're top 10 offensive rebounding. They're second right now in free-throw attempts drawn because they like to play downhill, and they don't waste time getting to the rim. And I believe this team as a whole has found a way to be just passable enough offensively with the top 3 defense. So the top 3 defense stands out to me, and just the physicality that they're starting to play with.
Definitely. And I mean, me being around the team, me being around Coach Mose and the rest of these guys, the amount of times that they have preached defense, the amount of times I talk to Coach Mosley consistently, and he's talking about we're a defensive-minded team, first and foremost, and they've got dogs. They've got length. They've got versatility, a bunch of young cats who, like you said, have that sense of urgency. And I promise you, their backbone is on the defensive side of the ball, and it's translated so far through the beginning parts of the season, and especially when J.I.'s healthy out there on the court, and he did his thing versus Giannis the other night in a big-time win at the Amway. Man, it's just it's special. And I mean, I'm sure you saw Jalen Suggs had 7 steals the other night in Mexico City. Just hell of a performance by him as well, too, man. This Magic team is doing some good things. And you briefly mentioned it. I got to get your thoughts really quickly about Anthony Black now really getting an opportunity to shine. Maybe this Markelle Fultz injury has been a little bit of a blessing in disguise. What have your initial thoughts been of AB so far through the beginning parts of this season?
19-year-olds oftentimes are thrown into the ringer. And I've come to learn patience is a virtue. With AB, he played 28 minutes the other night versus the Bucks, only had 2 points, but to me, it always felt like he needed to be on the longer route. He's not going to be a guy that's going to come in immediately and be one of the 3 or 4 best rookies from his class. But what stands out to me is his feel for the game, because right now he's playing primarily off the ball. The Magic are not running many pick and rolls for him. And so he's basically a connective 2. And one of his best assets last year at Arkansas was his ability to play off the ball. We saw the other night, Paolo Banchero, he's going up for mid-range pull-up, and everyone thinks, it's this, regular 18, 15-footer. It's a loud pass to AB who's cutting back door for a flush. And I think that off-ball activity combined with his ability to play make and transition, it's going to reinforce this team playing fast and up-tempo because he's a very quick decision maker. I've been encouraged, but I also would, of course, like to see him take a little bit more three-point attempts, quicken his release. And that's going to be something for a young teenager, which is going to take some time and not just a couple of games. It's going to take some years.
It is. And it's really been surprising to see like the ascension and the growth from him, because the thing is, he looks like a vet out there. He looks like he's got poise, command in the offense. And even like you said, when he's not playing with the ball in his hands, he's playing off ball. He's cutting towards the rim. He's standing in the corner. He hit 2 threes versus the Lakers. He hit 2 threes, I believe, versus the Mavs. I mean, he's been sensational. And it's actually been crazy because nobody expected this. I don't think Magic fans, I don't think even the Magic front office initially drafted him thinking this guy's going to come in right now and make an impact. And he's been doing it both sides of the ball, and it's been impressive.
Throwing him on Luka too the other night. He's getting in the post treatment. I felt like his skill set was guarding guards like Kyrie. So to see him gain that tough matchup of a 6'7" power wing, that's going to help him later on in the year, especially too.
Yeah, and I mean he's got the frame. He's got the frame, the size, and the athleticism to keep up with those guys. There was a play on Saturday night in transition when I was at Amway watching the Bucks game. Giannis is in transition, I believe, going up for like a tough layup or dunk, and AB drew a foul. And offensive foul was called on Giannis. He was upset. But like the heart and the integrity that he's going out there with, it's incredible. Intensity that he's going out there with. It's just, AB's been sensational so far this season.
Mo Wagner been rubbing off on him. I love it.
I was about to say, Mo Wagner and Joe Ingles, the kind of, pesky guys that they are, the kind of heart that they play with, definitely has rubbed off on a lot of those young guys too. But John, man, like I said, in-season tournament starts tomorrow for the Magic. Before I really kind of get into the details for everybody that's not familiar with how the in-season tournament works too, just kind of give me your little bit of an overall thoughts about what this is for the NBA branding. Do you like it? Do you think it helps value the regular season? And what do you think about the incentives in general for the in-season tournament?
I think the incentives could be a whole lot better. But at the end of the day, the NBA needs to raise interest in fall. And November basketball is usually not that interesting unless you're getting marquee matchups. So my issue is, number one, these groups are not divisions. I felt like that was a big opportunity missed. I also think they can make this still a valuable tournament while adding meaning to the incentives. What I mean by that is, I would like to see the winner of this tournament get to pick their first round matchup in the postseason. If you're a top 4 seed, you get to pick that bottom 4 seed. If you're a bottom 4 seed, I mean in the playoff, the 1 through 8 bracket,
correct, yeah,
you get to pick 1 through 4. And that would make every single team value this a little bit more because everybody wants the right round 1 matchup. And if you're an athlete, the most disrespectful thing is when someone says, I want you in round 1. And that makes it way more storyline driven. It adds drama and it adds meaning to those upsets like we saw with the Heat. I think that can make the NCAA tournament better. But to me, what really stands out is that we're getting a little bit more in these November games. And ideally, when Christmas and Thanksgiving come around, they're going to be a little bit more interesting for the fans. And of course, the players get that little $500K bonus, something around those lines if they do win.
Yeah, and I wish that there was a little bit more of an incentive bonus really outside of just the money too. I'm not really sure I agree with you necessarily on the whole, top 4 team, whoever wins the in-season tournament gets to pick a bottom 4. Because like I said, that is a little bit disrespectful. Imagine if we did see that upset where a team like the Bucks wins the in-season tournament. They go and say, I want to play the Heat in the first round. And then we saw what happened when they lost 4-1. That would just be hysterical if that happened. I'm not sure what the answer is, but I also like the fact that you're right. Fall basketball, unless it's a marquee matchup, unless you're a diehard, passionate NBA fan like me and you are, and we watch the NBA every single night, people are not going to be tuned in. This is prime football season. People are tapped into that. People feel like NBA players don't value the regular season.
Right.
Now this is a way, especially for the superstars, to go out there and to showcase their talents as well too. And honestly, I like it. I like the fact that you have different jerseys, you have different courts, even though a big majority of them are not
a little bit too
good.
much.
A little bit too much. Chicago's court, I am not looking forward to playing on Chicago's in-season tournament court. I do not like that at all. There's a couple bad ones. I think Orlando completely objectively has a very nice, solid one. The gray with the stripe in the middle. I think Utah's got a top 3
Mm-hmm.
in-season tournament court. A lot of good ones out there, but really a lot of bad ones. I just think it's good for the overall branding, helps get people at least tuned in. Even if the product's not perfect, we'll kind of have to wait and see. I just like the overall idea of it. But for you guys that aren't aware, Orlando, they are in East Group C for the tournament, which includes Boston, the Brooklyn Nets, the Toronto Raptors, the Chicago Bulls, and of course our Orlando Magic. The Magic have 4 in-season tournament matchup games before the tournament semis in Las Vegas will take place on December 7th and 9th. The incentives for it are the players on the winning team will each get $500,000, like John mentioned. The runners-up will get $200,000, and the losing players of the semifinals will each get $100,000. The losing players of the quarterfinals will get $50,000, and the payout for the head coach of the winning team is going to be $500,000. So there is good money incentives. Like I said, I don't think any superstar players like LeBron, Steph, Kawhi, all these guys that are getting top money, I'm sure that they could not care less about $500,000. But I think for a lot of these guys, getting some extra pocket change, getting some good money, and just having another reason to go out there and play some competitive basketball, I think it's going to be great. And Orlando starts their in-season tournament tomorrow as we record this video at Brooklyn. We've got a 4-game road trip. We got at Brooklyn, 2 back-to-back games at Chicago, and then we wrap up Sunday at Indiana. And 2 of those games at Brooklyn, at Chicago this week will take place as in-season tournament games, November 14th and November 17th. So, John, give me your record prediction really for this week ahead, and what do you expect from the Magic in terms of the in-season tournament so far?
With the Magic missing Wendell, Gary probably, and Markelle at the knee tendonitis, my expectation is they go 2-2. They start off with the Nets. Cam Thomas is out, but Ben Simmons may play. He's got that contusion. Then you go and play the Bulls 2 times. And Chicago is a team, they've got a history at this Magic squad, because the storyline is the Magic gypped them in the Vucevic trade. He gets to play against his old team.
Thank you, Chicago.
And then you wrap up with the Pacers, who Tyrese Halliburton this year has been fantastic. I think a realistic expectation is 2-2. You hope to get Markelle and Gary Harris back into the lineup, and then you can still be above 500 moving into the depths of November.
I think that's a fair analysis, especially because we get the news as we record this video that Gary Harris and Markelle Fultz are going to travel with the team to Brooklyn. They're not going to be playing, so you're still probably going to get a lineup of AB, Suggs, Franz, Paolo, and probably Goga starting as well too. If we're going to go 2-2, which I expect to go 3-4 this week, objectively, but if we're going to go 2-2, I want to win the in-season tournament games. I want to win at Brooklyn, and I want to win the second game at Chicago. If we're going to win those 2 and we're going to drop 2, let us win the in-season tournament games. And that means that we're going to come home the following week, host the Toronto Raptors, host the Boston Celtics. I think those are going to be great matchups as well, too. What do you think our record prediction is going to be in terms of the first 4 in-season tournament games that we could have? You think we advance possibly as a wild card? Maybe win the group?
I can see them advancing as a wild card, because the Nets game to me is very winnable without Cam. And then the Bulls game, Chicago's been a mess this year. And I expect them to be so much better out the gate. You win those first 2 games, I think you're in a really good position. But do you know the last 2 matchups afterwards?
Yeah, so we play the Toronto Raptors at home on November 21st and the Boston Celtics November 24th, that Friday afternoon. So those are the other 2 in-season tournament games. Those will be in Orlando.
They could win that 3rd game versus the Raptors just because Toronto's in a state of flux as well, trying to find their identity. And one thing that the Magic need credit for is knowing exactly who they are in this stage. They're missing 2 starters right now, but unlike last year, they had the point guard depth to withstand that. And so if they know who they are, and they're kind of Toronto with a little bit more playmaking, a little bit more depth. To me, they've got a notable amount more depth. They can realistically go 3-0, but I think losing Wendell is critical.
Losing Wendell is critical. I will say how well Mo Wagner has played so far this season, subbing in, having those big-time minutes. He's shooting 37% from deep. He's averaging 13 points a game off the bench. He's doing incredible work, that energy and that swag that he really brings in that second unit. Alongside Ingles, alongside J.I. Cole Anthony's a 6th man of the year candidate. Like, you've got the depth this year, and you've got the team that believes in their defense, that's been their backbone. And honestly, look, I'm not going to sit here and say we're going to sweep the group, right? But we did win 3 games versus Boston last year. We do match up very well with Boston. JB can play, a little bit suspect at times. I think you've got the length to match up with Jason Tatum as well too. Boston is still obviously a top team in the NBA, but
they're filthy.
It's not far-fetched to say Orlando could really make some noise in this in-season tournament and potentially win the group, at least be a wild card.
And the in-season tournament is geared for young teams that aren't making max money. Paolo Banchero values $500K. That's like an amount. That's a house. Like
he probably just spent that on his 21st birthday this weekend. He probably just spent that.
Maybe. I mean, he's not in Vegas or Miami, but he's not too far. Here's the other thing too, though. With the Celtics, they're such a great team, and it allows the Magic to get that recognition on the biggest stage. ESPN's going to be covering them. And you look at this young team, it's very similar to the Celtics. They just got not as much shooting, but the wing duo in and of itself is kind of the future of what a lot of NBA front offices and teams value. To highlight Mo Wagner real quick, right now he leads the NBA in two-point shooting at 76%. He's been playing really well, man. And you would be surprised to hear that, but coming out of the draft, he was supposed to be a three-point shooter. It never came. It's slowly developing in Orlando, and he has been exactly what you look for. A pesky big man. He plays with a lot of heart. He's got a good connection with his brother, very good finisher in pick and roll, and I think he does just enough with the charges and just generally being in the right spots to hold up on the defensive ends. Hold up.
Yeah, and I was going to say his defense isn't particularly great when you at least compare him to Goga, but I will say it's serviceable. It is. His presence alone is good enough. And offensively speaking, man, Mo has just been sensational. I didn't know he actually led the league in 2-point percentage. That's incredible. He's been doing his thing underneath the rim, getting putbacks. Just, wow. That actually just blew my mind right there. I did not know that. And Mo's such a great guy to be around. When I'm working these games, man, and during pregame warm-ups, postgame pressers, it doesn't matter. Mo's always got a smile on his face, man. These guys are out there laughing, having a good time. And man, I really think that this team is just really turning the direction. And like you said, for that Boston matchup specifically on the 24th, that afternoon, it's a big opportunity for Orlando to really showcase, like, hey, we're here. If we can get Markelle, if we can get Gary Harris back, and, let's just say for the sake of argument, Wendell's still going to be out with that injury. Right. I mean, Orlando could really give Boston, I think, a world of trouble with the length and versatility that they have.
Exactly.
So give me your actual record prediction for the Magic right here, right now, in season tournament. How do you think that they fare up?
You know what? I think they're going to win the first three games versus the Nets, Raptors, and Bulls. These are three very mediocre teams. And this is a very top-heavy group that they're in. It's the Celtics, and everybody thinks it's everybody else. But the Celtics may not care about this Indian tournament. To them, they're thinking, what's 500K? Their bench is a bit top-heavy. The Magic bring the energy. If they're getting Markelle and Gary Harris back, I think that can be an uber competitive game. But I also think the Celtics are a 60-win team. The Celtics are that good in this type of stage. So I expect the Magic to go 3-1.
I expect the Magic to go 3-1. I'm going to say 3-1. I'm going to say a loss to Boston, which will break my heart because I'll be there covering the game. I actually got one of my boys. He works for the Celtics. He's the team videographer and social media manager. Awesome. So I'll get to meet up back again with him from all of our work that we used to do in Jacksonville. So, man, I'd love to have some bragging rights. I'd love to go out there and beat a top contender. I think we win those first three games. I do. I think we beat Brooklyn. I think that we beat Chicago, and I think we beat Toronto at home. It's going to be interesting to see. It really, really is. And I think that Orlando's really going to give a team a run for their money. So are we saying wild card then? Are we assuming that we're not winning the group?
I don't think they're going to win the group, but I expect wild card.
So if we go wild card, how far do you think that this team will go in Vegas? Because I want it all right here, right now. Let's put it on record.
I mean, this wild card matchup is going to put them against a top-tier team winning their group, right? I think if you're losing versus the Celtics, it's probably going to be because defensively you're missing one of the best, arguably by the numbers. Wendell Carter's been fantastic. Opponents shoot 10% worse at the rim this year against him. If you're missing Wendell for, 2 to 3 weeks, I think that's going to
be longer depending on how he recovers.
And that's a guy who's generally taking a little bit longer to get back into the flow. If you're losing to the Celtics, it's probably because you're going to miss him a whole lot. And I just don't think Goga Bitadze is anywhere near starting center right now. He can't really finish. He's out of position on the glass. I have a hard time with that lack of mobility because he can move, sure, but he doesn't move like Wendell does at 6'10". I think they'd probably lose that wild card matchup because Wendell Carter to me is a borderline top 10 center.
He is. He's definitely borderline. I think Goga defensively brings a lot more. Offensively, the production's not really there, but I just think you need your guards back, man. I think you need to be healthy to really make a serious run with this because I think you can squeak by for now with no Markelle, no Gary Harris out there. You're going to need continuously better shooting still from the rest of these guys. I mean, Jalen Suggs, he's player of the week this week too,
Right.
for the Magic. I mean, just incredible performance. We know the kind of defensive guy that he is, but he's shooting 36% from deep this season.
Right.
It looks like the consistency is getting better. I mean, what have you kind of seen from Jalen as well too?
Man, coming out of the draft, my comparison for Jalen Suggs was Kyle Lowry. And so his rookie year to me was very shocking from a shooting perspective because the pull-up shooting wasn't there. And I thought it would be coming out of Gonzaga. But last year, we saw him grow 12% from three. And this year, the important thing is that it's stabilizing. For a starting shooting guard, they're usually taking 7 attempts per game. With Suggs, he's taking 4 attempts, which means he has to be so good everywhere else on the floor, playing transition, playing defensively, playing on the glass. He's had a variety of big game winners last year. He almost had another one this year. That it's reasonable to start him at the 2. And I think right now he is an all-defensive guard, but he's spearheading a top 3 defense. And his on-ball value is one thing. He's going to fight off the screens. At times, refs are going to hit him with the whistle because he's so aggressive and he's not really getting the benefit of the doubt. But then his help defense, the ability to stunt and recover, is something else. At 6'4", he plays completely different than Kyle Lowry defensively. He can play above the rim, right? And that's where I start to see it's not Kyle Lowry. I was wrong on that. He's a lot more like Marcus Smart to me. He's a good, not great athlete. And he's able to, with that motor he plays with, wears hard on his sleeve so much that it rubs off on everybody else. I think he's established himself as starting shooting guard. And keep in mind, they just drafted his replacement, no matter how you want to frame it. Anthony Black came in here because Suggs played 48 games as a rookie and 50 last year. He was injury prone. It seemed like he was injury prone, at least. That dated back to his high school days. And so he's played like a guy that's got his rent due right now, and I can only respect it.
Yeah. With Jalen, like you said, that motor, how spearheaded he is, leading that defense on the perimeter, what he does. No, he's established himself as the number 2 of the future, in my opinion. The consistency from the perimeter is only going to continuously get better. I think that AB getting drafted was the replacement for Markelle. With an expiring contract, I think that's where you're looking at, are the Magic going to move on from Markelle? I still say when Fultz gets back to being completely healthy, whenever that is, and hopefully that's this week at some point, I think he should still get the benefit of the doubt of being the starting point guard, leading the offense, helping facilitate, making sure Paolo and Franz actually get the needing and the spacing that they need.
Right.
Kind of taking that pressure off of them as well, too. And even though AB has been sensational, I think you still give that credit to Fultz right now. But with Suggs, can't say enough, man. That guy's motor, his heart, he really is the engine that gets this team running. Everybody can have their own opinions. And look, Paolo and Franz, and I said this on Twitter, I'm going to say it again. They're obviously our 2 best and most valuable players. There's a legitimate argument I could make, even when healthy. Suggs is the 3rd most valuable player on the team. I don't know if he's the 3rd best.
Right.
He might be, but he might be the 3rd most valuable player to this team. Their identity, what they do. It's incredible to watch this guy just go 110% every single play in transition, going downhill, kicking it out. Just everything he does, man. Remember that shot he missed versus the Lakers, that potential game winner? And just the emotion he was showing because he wants it that bad. Like, why would you not want a player like that on your team?
You saw he did AD. He said, AD, I don't care how tall you are. I'm going to box you all the way out. That's my rebound, little man.
Yeah.
AD's 7 inches taller, and he's stunning him. And then he's getting the offensive rebound. And that shot he took, he was not passing it. He had one thing in his mind. I'm getting behind the 3-point line, and I'm taking the shot. And that moment in time reminded me of his Warriors game winner last year where
that was early on in the season, too.
He's not Marcus Smart, and he is in the sense he's got the motor, but he's Marcus Smart in the way of which he does not care, and that is a very important theme with these energizers on both ends. But with Suggs, one more thing that's really been good to me is that he's finishing better. Because first year in the NBA, he shot 59% at the rim, and that's very average for a point guard. For a guy that's more above the rim, you'd expect it to be a whole lot better. This year, it's at 68%, and he's always had the hang time. He can make it happen because he's a very physically imposing guard, but it's a matter of touch. He's another one of these football players who wasn't always playing year-round. I think getting to the gym consistently has really helped him gain that feel around the rim and off the glass.
Yeah, and I think, honestly, just having Paolo, having Franz, and having whoever you want to throw at the 1, being able to kind of take some of that ball pressure off of him so he doesn't consistently have to bring the ball up, consistently put himself in pick-and-roll situations, him being able to play off the ball as a 2 guard, I think that's really helped him a lot as well, too. I had another thing I wanted to ask you too, but I know you had something that you wanted to ask me as well too. You had a
I,
couple thoughts that you wanted to ask me.
I wanted to ask you when talking about the Magic defense, because Jalen Suggs and Wendell Carter to me are the guys who are kind of leading the group.
Hmm.
What are Jonathan Isaac and Gary Harris defensively? Because I haven't been super locked into Gary. I've only seen him nailing corner threes. And so I'm
Yes.
wondering, should Gary Harris be starting? Could he be starting with Jalen Suggs at the one? And the second part of that question is, John Isaac's only playing 12 minutes per game. Could we see more of him with those two forwards
So
together?
first of all, with Gary Harris, no, Gary should not be starting. If you have a healthy AB, Markel, Jalen, one of those three guys or two of those three guys need to be the starting backcourt, plain and simple. Not because Gary Harris is incapable of being that, not because he's incapable of playing defense at a solid level.
Mhm.
He's serviceable on the defensive side of the ball. Doesn't do a phenomenal job of getting around screens. He will fight through.
Mhm.
He does put a hand up. He does enough just to be out there to be serviceable,
Right.
not get consistently blown by. He could be better, but what we need Gary Harris out there doing, being that veteran presence and also being able to knock down
Floor
3-point
spacer.
shots. Last season, I think a career high in 3-point percentage, over 40% last year with Orlando. This season, he's doing a good job, and we need him to continue doing that. We need him back out on the court because
Mhm.
shooting is still a struggle for the Magic, and they need a guy like Gary Harris out there. Now with J.I., even when he's not dealing with an injury, he's still on a minutes restriction. I believe last night or a couple nights ago versus the Bucks, I think he played 16, 17 minutes.
Right.
Same thing versus the Hawks, somewhere around that 16 to 17 minute mark. And with J.I., I ideally would like to see him playing 20, 25 minutes a night because we know defensively he's one of the best in the game. He's one of the best, most versatile guys that can switch 1 through 5. He was giving Giannis hell the other night. And we know that he's capable of doing that. The blocks, the steals, even his presence alone, all in the recovery time. When he's out there on the court, you have to respect him. And the 3-point shooting has gotten better. It has. He's taken it with a lot more confidence. You clearly see the ball going in a lot more. And J.I. has been that way really since coming to the Magic when he's been playing. But I think Coach Mosley's really helped instill that kind of confidence in him that, hey,
Right.
you're open. We want you taking those corner threes at the top of the key, wherever you're at. But I also understand that J.I. is just not going to get these minutes right now. They are being ultimately precautionary with him,
Yeah.
and rightfully so. They want to slowly ramp this guy back up. His body has not been put through this really in 2, 3, 4 years where he's consistently playing like this too. So as much as I want to see J.I. out there when he's healthy, it's just kind of unrealistic right now to speak like that.
And we saw him closing the game. I believe it was versus the Mavericks, one of those games where there's a lack of shooting. And I felt like when they drafted Franz and Paolo, it was basically saying John Isaac's no longer in our long-term vision. But if he's healthy, you're getting one of the most instinctual wings on the defensive end. And so if you compare the three of them together with two shooters, I've always been intrigued by that lineup in transition because the Magic specialty offensively should be making hit-ahead passes off of steals. And I think Isaac can kind of replace what Bol brought in that since last year, a very good transition score. And that's only going to help their offense, which is limited in the half court, really get to league average because of what they can do out in space.
Definitely. And I mean, we saw J.I. playing small ball 5 the other night.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very interesting lineup that, maybe Coach Mose is going to mess around with a little bit more too, right? Having J.I. being able to space the floor, he can still handle the rock, but, he can sit in the corner, sit by the wing, hit those threes when Paolo and Franz are driving to the rim. And honestly, I like it. I just need to be able to see more of him out there being healthy, slowly getting him ramped up because everyone sees the talent. It's screaming at you watching it. But man, he's just such a talented player. Just need him to stay healthy, right? And that's on the coaching staff, that's on him in order to get this guy prepared to play 65 plus games a season.
7-11 on corner threes the last year and a half. Very small sample size.
Very small sample size, but he's taking them and he's hitting them and he's doing it with confidence. I think, like I said, that's the biggest thing that Coach Mosley's talked about specifically with J.I. and with Suggs. When you talked about with Suggs in that shot versus the Lakers, like, hey, I'm taking this. That's how Suggs has been all year. Even when he struggles to shoot, the shot quality is good.
Yeah.
You like the shots that he's taking because the guys are getting him open shots. They might not always fall, but he's taking it with confidence, something he definitely was not doing the first 2 years in the league. A lot more hesitation. Obviously, injuries had kind of derailed him. Maybe that shook his confidence a bit too. But Jalen Suggs and J.I., what they've been able to do offensively speaking, and now Mo Wagner, their improvement on the offensive side of the ball, it really speaks volumes to what Coach Mose and this coaching staff has been doing.
And just playing the right role specifically. We're seeing that with the Rockets. Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks are scapegoating other places because they're playing and asked to play in something that they're underqualified for. With Jalen Suggs as a rookie, he was running an offense with a 25% usage rate. But now all of that's changed and he's found his role, and that's why you're seeing him just play a lot more free because he's not being asked to run the offense and be the go-to scorer. It's like that is kind of unrealistic for a 19-year-old guard. And when expectations are proper, guys are going to thrive in that specialty, and that's Suggs, what he is doing right now. I mean, it's exactly what he's doing at Gonzaga in one of the best college seasons we've seen.
Yeah, and I need this guy to stay in Orlando. Like, I mean, I think out of very hot take, I think out of our 4 guards, and I mean no disrespect to the other guys, Cole, Jalen,
Right.
AB, who am I missing? Markelle.
Yeah.
I think if you were hypothetically going to go out there and try to trade for a big-time player, out of those 4 guards, Suggs is the one that's untouchable. Like, there's no way you can get rid of Suggs in any trade. If you were going to go out there and try to get a Trae Young, a Darius Garland to come to Orlando, hell, even a Donovan Mitchell.
Right.
You cannot trade Jalen Suggs with his value on the defensive side of the ball, the energy, intensity that he plays with. Markelle Fultz, AB, Cole, and like I said, it's no disrespect to those guys. Those guys are great in their roles and what they do. But I think Jalen is the guy out of those 4 that's, you can't have him.
He's the most established starter. And I want to ask you about this because I think Markelle Fultz is a really damn good playmaker. And what he reminds me of is, because it's not the more recent seasons, he reminds me of a rookie De'Aaron Fox. And it's ironic, these are 2 guys in the same draft class, because the start-stop ability and that deceleration into the manipulative, very deceptive driving, it's so similar to what De'Aaron Fox. But the difference is Fox is an elite level mid-range shooter. Fultz has shown that, but it hasn't been consistent. Fultz has had a little more injury history. So I think Markelle Fultz is the perfect 6-man long-term. But Cole Anthony just signed a 3-year extension with his team, and I feel like Fultz is the better player, but Anthony brings more of a unique skill set as a mid-range, more necessary skill set as a mid-range shot maker. So what do you do? Would you rather have Cole Anthony or Markelle Fultz long-term?
That's a tough question. I think Markel's overall still the better point guard.
Yeah.
A lot of Magic fans, at least on Twitter, really talk about Cole being our 3rd best player. And look, I love Cole. I think he's honestly the glue guy to this team, the guy that kind of keeps everyone collectively together. Funny, obviously an incredible scorer off the bench. Cole Anthony reminds me a lot of when Jordan Clarkson got traded to Utah. Your role is to have the green light in that second unit, bro. Go out there and shoot as much as you want. Shoot 15 shots, go out there, shoot 5. Go out there, you have the green light, take good quality shots, and be that guy off the bench for us. And I think Cole does that at an exceptional level. When he was asked last season, after he only started 4 games, to be the guy coming off the bench and to be that 6-man, he embraced that role and he did it at a very good level. And he's doing that again this season. But with Markelle, I think Markelle just has more to his game. I think he's defensively a little bit better. I think he's got a little bit more versatility. I think he does a better job of actually running the offense. And you've seen him be a better finisher at the rim. He obviously has the mid-range game as well, too. Cole's is obviously a bit better. He's obviously a much better shooter and more consistent. But it's just, I don't think I could honestly sit here definitively and say right here, right now, without seeing Markelle at least get another 25 games this season and have a definitive answer. Right now, I think I'll roll and I'll lean a little bit more Markelle.
Right.
But no, Cole Anthony needs to stay a 6-man just because that is his defined role, and he does that at an exceptional level. Again, I don't need Cole Anthony starting.
Getting him for $13 million is really good, too, because Anthony, I think, is more explosive than a Jordan Clarkson off the dribble. He's a little bit quicker in that first step. And so to me, his drive game is there. That is something where he doesn't have to be a volume 3-point shooter if the shots aren't going in. And that first step is kind of what made him a lottery level talent coming out of the 2020 draft, though he was run 1 pick out of it. But I have a hard time seeing Markelle Fultz anywhere else because he's such a specific player. And the Magic right now have one of the best net ratings of any starting 5 with Markelle and Paolo playing together. So their starting 5 is very good, though Wendell's not on the floor. That's going to hurt. Can they, or should, what I'm really trying to ask you is, should Markelle Fultz still be extended long-term as that starting point guard? Because the Magic go plus 13 net rating when he's in the game with Paolo. But these are 2 guys that are better off separately being built around.
This is why I'm grateful I'm not Jeff Weltman, Anthony
Right.
Parker, or Jamal Mosley. These guys are pulling their hairs out because what are we going to do with this team? There is so much good young talent. We've seen the production. We've seen the growth from these guys from training camp till now. Where the rotational minutes going to come from? My honest thought and gut feeling is that Markelle is dealt at the deadline, right? Expiring contract. Try to get something for him. I think another guard's probably going to be gone, probably another pick, because probably by the time we get to February and we get to that deadline, the Magic could be hovering around that 6, 7, maybe even 5 seed if things continue to go well.
Right.
Do we try to go grab a Darius Garland? Do we try to go get a Donovan Mitchell? Do we try to go get a Trae Young? Right? I don't know. Like, a lot of these stars could be on the move, but I think personally, I think Darius Garland's the perfect fit in Orlando. I would like a Trae Young, but like I said, I don't think you can move on from a Jalen Suggs, because if you're going to go out there and get a guard who can distribute the ball and obviously score 20 points on any given night, you're not asking him to go out there and to play defense. You're asking him to run the offense, do what he does consistently, and then you let Jalen go out there and guard their team's best ball handler. So I think Markelle's gone at the deadline. That's just my honest gut feeling. I don't know what transpires because he hasn't been healthy really to begin this season. So I just need to see at least 20, 25 games of Markelle this year to just really get a good evaluation of it too. But it's so hard when AB's doing what he's doing. Jalen's playing phenomenal. Cole got extended. He's not going anywhere. A lot of tough decisions to be made.
You know what, man, with knee tendonitis, he may be listed day to day, but to me, it felt like the moment one of their top two guards in Jalen Suggs or Markelle got hurt, that was the end of it in Orlando. Because Anthony Black, he had 38 minutes per game last year in Arkansas. He plays a lot. He's a young kid that brings a very similar skill set to those two, but they're very redundant. And so to me, it's like Markelle can miss a couple of games. When he comes back into the lineup on a minutes restriction, now that spot may be glued. It's Anthony Black, the rookie. Do you think Anthony Black should start the rest of this year if Markelle misses the next 4 games and Black's playing relatively well?
No, I think it's still Markelle's job to lose. I talked about this a week ago on the channel. I said if Markelle comes back and he's still healthy or, 90%, if he's good enough to go out there and play, Markelle should be the starting point guard. If he loses that job because he's not performing well, the team is not performing well, then that's another thing. I think it's his job to lose. I think he's earned that right, and I think he's earned that over time with his play and his development. If we go 3, 4 games, 5 games where the offense looks shaky, maybe we go on a little bit of a losing skid and Markelle just looks like he's not in form, that's where the decision gets made. Yeah. I don't think right now Markelle comes back and you say, all right, come off the bench because AB's going out there and he's going to be the starting guard. I think he's been serviceable, and I think he's overachieved for what we've asked of AB so far this season, and he's looked poised. But no, I'm rocking with Markelle for right now. He's got to lose that opportunity for me to just completely move on and insert AB into that lineup.
I agree with you, because the Magic with Markelle in the starting lineup have a 95 defensive rating, and a 108 offensive rating can be better. I expect the Magic this year to make a move at the deadline. I can't see Darius Garland, but for Magic fans, it's got to be the dream, because he's the perfect type of guard with his skills to play off the ball. To me, the type of trade to expect from the Magic is to go out to a guy like Buddy Hield, a high-volume three-point shooter that's got a contract extension coming up, because what you need is a guy that's going to be young enough to finish this timeline. He's 29 years old, but with Gary Harris's injury concerns, you can't have zero, like, this guy's going to play 70 games and we can rely on him to make 40% of his threes in the roster. You need one of those guys. But one thing that's really, I've had a hard time with this, I want to see Paolo Banchero playing small ball 5, and we saw that in FIBA. It looked pretty good. In order for that to be something that happens, because the Magic have not done that at all this year, they need to have the shooting, the requisite shooting, to plug alongside him 2 really good shooters. And for as much as I like Joe Ingles in this team, he's making 23% of his threes right now. Shots are not going in. Gary Harris is missing time, and that's why the Magic are able to get him in that Aaron Gordon trade. If you get Buddy Hield, who's taking 7.5 3-point attempts, you pair him up with Jalen Suggs, Franz, and then Gary Harris when he's healthy in the opposite corner, now you can see that small ball 5 Apollo, and I think that would really open up their offense.
I think it would too. Let me ask you, since you brought up Buddy Hield. First of all, we should have traded for him during the offseason. That should have already been made. Buddy Hield, the top 10 shooter of all time?
Oh, man, that's a crazy question.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. He could retire right now in my eyes. He's a top 10 shooter ever. He's the most slept-on shooter in NBA history. There is no way. People do not understand how great Buddy Hield has been since entering the league.
I
Buddy
looked at
Hield
his
is a
stats.
top 10 shooter.
So he takes 7.5 3-point attempts for his career, and he shoots 40% on average. I look at guys like Larry Bird, who was a worse shooter because of the time he played in, and I say, when we're comparing players, it's got to be relative to era, because otherwise the next best thing is going to continue to be the next best thing. And I think Buddy Hield is in a large class of players in this era. I think of Michael Porter Jr. And there's so many other good shooters like Eric Gordon who are slightly less efficient,
Did you just say
but slightly
MPJ?
more versatile. And so I don't think he'd be top 10 of all time, but he's definitely like top 5 from this era. But I just don't think it'd have 7 or 8 guys all from the 2010s in that group. I got to respect guys like Larry Bird. I think of Mark Price. I don't know if 3-point shooting stuff was there, but Steve Nash, Reggie Miller, all those guys in the 80s and 90s and 2000s, because Nash didn't play in the 80s. And I put those guys like Nash ahead of Buddy Hield here. But he's lethal.
I can't. If you want to say Reggie, if you want to say even from this era, JJ Redick,
Right.
No one's going to debate Steph and Clay. But like, I think when you look at the numbers, especially by the end of his career, if he plays another 7-8 years in the league as a shooter, oh, bro, his numbers are going to be through the roof. I think he has more career threes than Kevin Durant, if I'm not mistaken, too. And he's obviously way more efficient. And KD's obviously one of the greatest offensive players. I just had to bring that up. I am a huge Buddy Hield stan. Been a huge fan of Buddy Hield since coming into the league. Go fact check that Kevin Durant stat for me really quickly while you can.
He's also 31 because Buddy Hield came in the league at 24.
31, yeah.
But I want to tell you one more thing. I watched him play in Boston when they got clipped by 50 points. It was a bloodbath, and the Pacers gave 150. But it seemed like Buddy Hield has improved since leaving Sacramento on defense. And so maybe you're getting someone with a little bit of defensive upside. Someone that's not going to be a total wallflower. And so that would be that's encouraging, because I would rather have Buddy Hield right now than Klay Thompson giving him a 4-year max.
Yeah, of course I would.
And
right.
By the way, Kevin Durant does have more 3-pointers of all time. I regret to inform you. He's got about 100 more. He's 21st all time. Buddy Hield is 27th in 3-point mix. Oh,
okay. So maybe I was basing that projection off of by the end of the season,
right?
Or sometime in the near
probably.
future. Because still incredible. Because what KD came into the league in 07?
07, 08, yeah.
07. So and Hield came into the league in 2015, 16,
right.
15, 16 maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, so
16.
We got a whole 8-year gap of one of the greatest offensive players to have ever played this game, and rightfully so. And Buddy Hield has done his thing. I think Orlando needs to be aggressive at the deadline. I felt like at the time, prior to AB and Jett Howard, Anthony Parker in this front office needed to package those picks, or at least package one of them, maybe a player, and go get somebody out there. There was obviously the talks of Dame, even though that was not going to happen. It just feels like the Magic just need to do just one more move. Just one more to really assert yourself as, okay, this is really a team in the Eastern Conference we have to take seriously because we know the defense is going to be there. Like I said, you go get a Donovan Mitchell who's on an expiring contract. You get a Darius Garland. You're really making some serious moves in the East. I'm just saying.
The Magic are a star guard away from, and a Paolo Banchero step forward to top 5, top 4 status in that Cavaliers 76ers Knicks tier. And you got the Heat.
Yes.
It's a deep Eastern Conference. I want to ask you the question, though. I've got 2 questions. The first one is about Paolo Banchero, who came out of FIBA, had a slow start. Do you think the sophomore slump is inevitable for Paolo here, or do you think he's slowly breaking out of it?
No, he's slowly breaking out of it. The shots just weren't falling.
Right.
That's really what it came down to. I think Paolo really is doing a much better job this season of being a little more analytical in what he's taking, making sure he's actually getting the right shots. Because if you look at his rookie season, I mean, a lot of those shots were contested. A lot of people were just keying in on him defensively. I think this season he's doing a much better job of that, making sure leave a more even keel with that. The slump's breaking out. And that game against the Bucks, obviously he had the breakout game versus the Jazz. The next game, I believe, was versus the Lakers, if I remember correctly. And then that game against the Bucks, I mean, he was just sensational. Double-double, phenomenal game. I think Paolo's going to be just fine.
So this year, 47% shooting is 5% higher, 4% higher in EFG, He's getting to the foul line 7 times per game. And if you want to break a sophomore slump, you get there top 10 in the league. But he's also averaging 5 assists. And I saw ESPN rank the top 10 young players in the NBA, and they did not include Paolo in their top 10. He was 14. And number one's for clicks. I understand that. But I think Paolo right now is firmly in the camp of top 5, top 6 guys like to build around, because the moment his mid-range shot becomes a consistent mainstay in his game that he's making routinely, you're looking at, to me, a guy that can lead a high-level offense, and that was exactly why the Magic drafted him. They want someone who can create for everybody else, but is also going to have so much untapped potential as a scorer. The second question I had for you is, what's Jett Howard in this team?
You know, everyone asked that question about Jett Howard. I mean, a guy who's 6'7", 6'8", lengthy, versatile, 3-and-D guy, can stretch the floor, young athletic legs. Where's the minutes? You just drafted this guy at 11th overall, and Joe Ingles is taking his minutes. It's a tricky conversation because I think Joe Ingles, obviously with his contract, his veteran presence, and his leadership ability, what he can do, especially taking a lot of that pressure off the ball in the second unit, I think it's a little bit more valuable right now than what Jett can do, because clearly if this team and Coach Mosley does not think that Jett Howard can produce right now, that's why he's sitting on the bench. It's going to be interesting to see, because obviously the ceiling is significantly higher than a 38-year-old Joe Ingles, and Jett Howard is going to get his opportunity, especially if we get a sniper out of him and what he showed at Michigan and what he can be at the next level. Oh, this team is going to look ferocious out there on the three-point line eventually. But I think as of right now, he's going to slowly have to still earn that from the rest of this team as well, too. It's interesting, but I think a lot of us do want to see him out there. But Joe Ingles right now is still the guy.
Definitely, with his playmaking gravity. The problem I had is that Jett Howard's more of an isolationist. He's more of a one-on-one guy from mid-range, but he had the three-point upside. My question is, can he be as good of an off-ball mover as a Jordan Hawkins, who's constantly flowing that Pelicans offense? And keep in mind, Hawkins was taken later in the draft because of that off-ball scalability.
No, Jordan Hawkins is a really good player coming out. And even like Keontae George over in Utah, right? Like I said, I remember when I was watching like January basketball back in January, and I was watching TCU Baylor. I didn't even know I was watching Keontae George. Like, this guy's popping off the screen. Guy's consistently moving without the ball, great in the pick and roll, guy who can score on all 3 levels. This is what the Magic need. And I would have liked to see more out of Jett Howard from that, moving without the ball. I don't think he's as quick, as elusive as a Jordan Hawkins or as a Keontae George. Nowhere near that. But his frame, his presence, his length, that's what the Magic always draft. They always draft a guy with that kind of frame. They want someone to fit the mold of the team and the culture. So I don't think so, but I do think that when you have Paolo, Jalen, Markel all getting downhill and the defense kind of collapses, that's where you can find value in being able to kick out to a guy like Jett Howard, who might be a 36, 35% shooter from distance his rookie season. We haven't been able to see it yet, but who knows? If the coaching staff, like I said, is not putting him out there, it's probably for a reason. They probably don't think right now he can make the impact, but it's definitely interesting. I do want to eventually see him getting some minutes out there, some valuable minutes, just to see how he looks.
Especially with the playmakers they have.
Absolutely. And, man, it's just, like I said, I'm very thankful I'm not Coach Mosley. I'm not Anthony Parker and these guys, because so many tough decisions to make with this young team at the deadline. Right now, rotational minutes. Once Markel comes back, how do we fit Markel and AB really going into this lineup? A lot of questions that need to be answered to. But, dude, amazing podcast. Great that we got to get on here talking about the Magic a little bit too. Both got us going 3-1 in the in-season tournament for the Magic too. So as you guys are seeing this video tonight, the Magic will be taking on the Brooklyn Nets. Man, the Magic have some fun things going on this week, next week, and it's exciting times in Orlando. The Amway's been rocking. The culture and the energy's been shifting. John, thank you again so much for coming on to the channel. Give everybody your socials really quickly.
Thank you. You can follow me, YouTube, John Tortorelli, Tortorelli. And the future is bright here in Orlando, fellas. So I've got a lot of Magic fans go on my YouTube channel. Be sure to stay tuned. Check out the content, because we're going to be making some breakdowns and a bit of storytelling pieces too. I try to mix it up with current events, but also retrospectives. And don't thank you again for the stage. And always great talking to you, man.
Definitely, man. John's been killing it with the NBA stuff, especially all the Magic mutuals as well that's been following. Make sure you guys go check his stuff out. And Magic fans, let's get prepared for a great NBA in-season tournament. I'll be seeing you guys at the Amway versus the Toronto Raptors there to cover the game. Make sure you guys check out Orlando Magic HQ. All of our links, trees, and socials will be posted in the description down below. Thank you guys again. And like always, let's go Magic.